Welcome to this explainer. We are jumping right into a topic today that affects every single one of us, whether we want to admit it or not. We're going to explore the gritty reality of intellectual stamina. Basically, we're peeling back the curtain on why relying purely on your natural talent or, the smarts you had back in high school or college is actually a one-way ticket to cognitive decay. We so often look at brilliant creators, successful professionals, or prolific writers, and we just assume they have a gift. But the source material we're digging into today absolutely shatters that illusion. We're looking at the hidden engine of genius, and more importantly, how to prevent your own mind from rusting away.
It's a pretty terrifying question to ask ourselves, isn't it? Is your brain starting to rust? When we look at the insights of P.G. Hamerton, a highly prominent British writer and thinker, he issues an incredibly stark warning. He argues that without continuous, deliberate intellectual training, our minds don't just stay stagnant, they actively and rapidly begin to rust and deteriorate. Think of your brain like a high-performance sports car. You can't just leave it parked in the garage for a decade and expect it to start perfectly on the first try, right? The gears lock up, the metal degrades. While Hamerton argues that our intellect operates under the exact same unyielding laws of maintenance.
The reality here is brutally honest. As Hamerton points out, even if you were smart in your youth, if you do not make an effort, you will begin to deteriorate. If your brain rusts, it becomes useless. What this means is that your past academic achievements, those straight A's, that prestigious degree you earned, they mean absolutely nothing in the present if you abandon the daily habit of learning. It is so incredibly common for people who are brilliant in their youth to just coast on those past glories. But this intellectual rust, it's silent, it's fast, and it will quickly destroy your cognitive edge if you let your guard down for too long.
Which brings us to Phase 1, the terror of mental rust.
Resting on your laurels is quite literally the most dangerous thing an adult professional can do. Because think about it, once you enter the working world, that structured curriculum of school totally disappears. No one is forcing you to read, to analyze things, or to stretch your cognitive boundaries anymore. And this is exactly where the rust sets in for the vast majority of people. They confuse doing their job with intellectual growth. But simply repeating the same professional tasks day in and day out, that doesn't sharpen the blade, it just wears it down. The crucial antidote to this decay is what Hamerton calls intellectual training. Notice the word training there. It implies a workout. It implies sweat. Intellectual training is the continuous, daily effort of acquiring knowledge that is absolutely required in adulthood to prevent the mind from deteriorating. It proves that maintaining your mental sharpness isn't about luck, and it's definitely not passive. It's about relentless, deliberate conditioning. You have to actively choose to read challenging materials and push your boundaries every single day.
Let's move right along to Phase 2. Effort and accumulation are absolute.
Producing high-quality work or maintaining a high level of output in any field demands so much more than just sitting around waiting for a magical muse. We all love that romanticized idea of the genius who just gets struck by lightning and produces a masterpiece in a single sitting, right? But the reality is that continuous effort and the steady accumulation of knowledge are absolute non-negotiable requirements. You simply cannot output what you have not inputted. Take Hamerton himself. Before he was a highly respected author, he actually started his career as a painter, capturing landscapes in France. But as he transitioned from painting into writing, he discovered firsthand that you cannot just wing it. He realized that writing good books and sustaining that output over a lifetime requires the absolute conditions of continuous effort and massive knowledge accumulation. It wasn't enough to just have a good idea once. He needed a vast, overflowing reservoir of study to draw from continuously.
So this brings us to a massive paradigm shift. We have to completely reframe our understanding of how creativity and genius actually function. The amateur's view is that you just sit around waiting for inspiration to strike randomly from the heavens. But the professional's reality, entirely different. According to the text, inspiration and daily intellectual effort are in a strict sister relationship. They are directly proportional. Inspiration isn't some random lightning bolt from a clear sky. It is the spark that naturally ignites when you have diligently gathered enough dry kindling. If you don't read, if you don't put in that unseen hard work, the inspiration simply will not come.
If that sounds a bit abstract, let's jump into Phase 3, the overwhelming effort of greats.
Let's look at the concrete, almost unbelievable habits of some of history's greatest creators to see what this true effort actually looks like in the real world. Because when we talk about accumulation and training, we're not just talking about casually reading a paperback before bed. The people who leave a mark on history operate on a completely different scale of input. Consider the world-famous author Walter Scott. He's legendary for historical epics like Ivanhoe. But his intellectual effort wasn't just sitting at a desk imagining things. His research involved amassing staggering, massive libraries. He would literally wait at the docks for ships to arrive with huge stacks of newly published books from foreign countries.
And he didn't even stop at books. He collected actual historical weapons and armor just to feel them, to understand the weight of them, all to fuel the absolute authenticity of his writing. That is the sheer scale of physical and intellectual accumulation required for true greatness.
Or take the legendary Japanese historical novelist Ryotaro Shiba. His method was equally, if not more intense. When he researched a topic, he didn't just buy a few reference books. He famously bought literal truckloads of documents and historical records. Truckloads! He would read so exhaustively, absorbing so much context and granular detail, that he described reaching a state where the very words seemed to literally stand up off the page for him. He read until the history wasn't abstract anymore, but a vivid, living reality in his mind. That level of intense, obsessive immersion is the hidden foundation of his brilliant storytelling.
And that brings us to our final section, Phase 4, the water bird struggling underwater.
Everything we've discussed so far completely shatters the illusion of the effortless genius. When we consume a great book, a flawless presentation, or a brilliant piece of art, we are only looking at the final, polished product. We are totally blind to the mechanics of how it was actually created. The intellectual Shoichi Watanabe brilliantly captures this dynamic with his famous water bird metaphor. Picture a beautiful swan or a water bird in a pond. When you look at it from the shore, it appears to be gliding smoothly, elegantly, and completely effortlessly across the surface of the water. There is zero visible struggle. But, as Watanabe points out, this perfectly illustrates the massive dichotomy between a creator's visible masterpiece and their invisible reality.
Because right beneath the surface of that water, totally out of sight, that bird is paddling frantically. As the quote goes, everyone only sees the smooth swimming on the surface, but the reality is the tremendous effort happening beneath the water. The genius we admire, the elegant prose, the sharp insights, the perfect execution, that is merely the surface of the water. The true engine of their inspiration, the thing actually propelling them forward, is that desperate, continuous, exhausting paddling hidden entirely from view. It's the truckloads of books, the relentless reading, the daily fight against mental rust.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, the ultimate choice sits squarely on your shoulders. The science of intellectual stamina is crystal clear. Inspiration and effort are sisters, and without daily training, your mind is going to deteriorate. Are you going to rely on fading past glories and the smarts of your youth until your brain completely rusts away into uselessness? Or will you embrace the hidden engine of effort, pick up a challenging book today, and start frantically paddling beneath the surface? The water's waiting.